So what next now in this murder probe? Do the police have a lot to answer for? Or will politics end up derailing this justice campaign? And of course, we will also be talking to doctors and ask the question, is it time for them to rejoin work? First, let's look at what happened in the court today. I'm joined by Yashovardhan Azad, former IPS, and also Karuna Nandi, senior advocate. She appeared in the Supreme Court today. I appreciate both of you joining us. Karuna Nandi, the court seems to have today sent out a clear message that they do not want politics to be played in this case, and they want the case to proceed according to the rules and procedures. What's your sense? What's your biggest takeaway today from what happened in court?
I think the court today has really provided a healing touch, because when the anger and the upset of thousands of doctors, and our joint forum actually comprises of about over 25,000 doctors, and they are affiliated to all political stripes. Many of them are otherwise supporters of the TMC as well. So the thing is that the kind of upset and outrage and very, very personal anguish that quite naturally came from this murder, rape and murder, meant that they found it very difficult also to feel safe at work. We must remember that. So today the court went into great detail, as your reporters have reported very well. They went into great detail into the reports. They made it clear that this is not a political issue, that this is the matter of the rule of law, and this is a matter of somebody losing her life while she was on duty. This also dovetails into what the court has done with regard to setting up a task force. Now, let us not forget that that task force is mandated to look into women's right to work, and doctors' conditions in this regard. So, and it's a very broad mandate, and suggestions have been invited by everyone who has a stake in this, all stakeholders, just like the Verma committee actually, that looked at, I think, over 88,000 recommendations and then came up with that fantastic path-breaking report. This task force is comprised of doctors, and it is going to propose deep structural reforms that we hope means that something like this will never happen again.
Okay, so that of course is what the court wants from the doctors in terms of proposing this task force. But Yashovardhan Azad, to the case itself, today the court made it very clear we will not go by what social media says. There are lots of allegations that have been put out in the social media realm. We've got, as Munish Pandey reports, the CBI suggesting it's not a case of gang rape, it's a case of rape. They're now looking at why the FIR was delayed, why the unnatural death report. There are contrary versions as to when exactly it was done. Kapil Sibal said at 10 in the morning. There was another report that said it happened later in the evening. These specifics, how important are they? Is the case now about first identifying the rapist, Sanjoy Roy, allegedly, or is it about going through the timeline of alleged lapses by the hospital authorities in particular and possibly by the local police?
Well, Rajdeep, there are two distinct parts to this issue, as you're trying to point out. First is the investigation per se, and I would say that the most important thing is to carry on the investigation. I'm glad that many of the rumors which are being spread on the social media have not been attended to or listened to. There were lots of them. And now CBI is taking over the investigation. The accused has already been caught, and it was caught by the Kolkata Police within 2 days. And now the CBI is going further by taking the polygraph test. That's all well done. The second thing which I have not understood is how the crime scene was altered or who altered it. But the other part, as far as the lapses go, I think the most important part, I'll just clarify in a minute, is that when you have a body For example, there's a body lying on the road, and you're not able to, find out as to what exactly happened to this body. You register a case of unnatural death. It's called a Marg Panchnama is done, and then thereafter you do the investigation and then check out what has happened. In this particular case, Rajdeep, it was fairly evident for any police officer who would have gone there that this is a case of a cognizable crime. And therefore, the Supreme Court has said that the FIR is delayed. For example, if you see a bullet injury guy lying dead on the road, you don't, register an unnatural death. You register a case of murder immediately. And that is why this point will hurt Calcutta Police. I think the police commissioner should be held responsible for this. As far as the lapses go, it was sacrilege on the part of the principal of the college to make it look like suicide, and therefore his actions have been a kind of suspect. Mind you, Rajdeep, this is a
So what
case
can they be charged with? Can they be charged with cover up? What the hospital ex-principal in particular? The Kolkata police today gave a timeline minute by minute of what happened on the 9th. So they seem to have given their details. But the role of hospital of Dr. Ghosh in allegedly telling through possibly some junior that it was a suicide, reports as the CBI suggested that when they came 5 days later, the scene had been altered. Who takes responsibility? Where does the buck stop?
There are 2 or 3 things on which he'll be questioned very seriously. As to when did he get the information about the crime, and when did the report go to the police? That's extremely important if you're delaying the time for lodging an FIR. Number 2 is whether he had any role in altering the crime scene. And third, whether there was any role of his in trying to, shift evidence or trying to influence people. So some kind of, interfering with the evidence on ground. And that is why they're going through a polygraph test on him. But I think that there's another person also who should be caught in this, and that should be the in charge of security. It always some administrator or a professor. His role should also be tapped, because his was the most important role in informing the police and getting the FIR lodged. So these are important things which the Calcutta Police would look into, and the conflicting statements of the 4 interns who are also going to be examined under the polygraph test to find out. So the 2 parts: one is the investigation which will be going ahead, and second, the lapses, whether they are to be taken as a kind of culpability in the crime itself.
Karuna Nandi, therefore, given the fact that now the case focus shifts to the investigation and the lapses, if any, on part of the Kolkata police and the hospital authorities, where does this leave what your petitioners, who were the doctors themselves, their concerns? Do they still remain on the table? Will you continue to monitor those?
So there are, what was placed before the court today were 2 sets of investigations. One is into the rape and murder itself. The other is into the, which the Kolkata police is carrying out at the moment, I think, the vandalism, where thousands of goons broke into the hospital and vandalized the place, right? So there's that. Then there is, we placed before the court a 3rd investigation, a 3rd SIT that the West Bengal government has set up to look at financial irregularities. And the financial irregularities in the hospital, including very much of Dr. Chandrachud Ghosh. We also told the court that for example, Dr. Chandrachud Ghosh is alleged to have hired CCTV cameras for a huge amount instead of buying them. And if he had bought them, then perhaps they would have acted as a deterrent, or they would have, been helpful in determining what exactly happened. So that is something that we will place before the court on the next occasion with documents, etc. So these are the 3 things before the court.
Okay.
Now, the reason that, look, the court has been very clear in saying that they very much want to overhaul the system in order to make it workable, livable, decent work for doctors, and primarily for women doctors, right? So that trust, I think, that the doctors have in the court and the way in which this case is being handled will show on the ground. And the court is therefore saying that, look, no coercive has protected us from our doctors, from coercive, and all doctors, from coercive action until the order was published. The order came out today. And they're saying that, quite reasonably in my opinion, and in our doctor's opinion, that, look, there are patients waiting, and we understand the difficulties you have gone through and why you needed to express this outrage and upset and hold the state to account. By the state, I mean everybody, really, not just the state government. And then no coercive action will be taken with regard to the protests and not being at work so far. But then now he has requested that the doctors get back to work.
Okay, let me leave it there. Yashowardhan Azad, therefore, you're seeing some of the flashes. The Chief Minister of Bengal saying the trial must conclude in 15 days. The BJP lashing out at her, saying that the Chief Minister is the one who has much to answer for. Is there a fear that the politics will take over the hard investigation? Even today in court, the Chief Justice had to intervene between Tushar Mehta and Kapil Sibal and say, look, no politics here. Or one side telling the other that you are muddying the waters, others saying we're trying to remove the mud. The politics, how much of it affects the investigation by the CBI?
Well, 2 points here. First is that the investigation will go on. It will not be impacted by any kind of politics because the investigation line is pretty clear now. The guy has been caught. It does not, I even said yesterday, that doesn't look like a case of gang rape, and therefore the investigation will not be impacted. But I think the biggest danger or the fallout of this incident is that people's faith have completely gone, completely destroyed in the case of politicians and the institutions. And I have a feeling that such cases will regularly be coming up before the Supreme Court. I think in this particular case also, Rajdeep, there's one important thing in the National Task Force, and I would also appeal to Karunanidhi ji, that there should have been a professional security expert as an ex officio member, say, for example, Director General CISF, who's been asked also to protect these institutions, because it's very important that the institution heads should be given the full responsibility for the protection of this. And one last point, that see, this was not about a generally unsafe environment. This was an attack by a rogue, an inside element, like it happened in the case of school, the janitor. Therefore, it is incumbent upon the heads of the institution to ensure the safety and security standards, and therefore appointment of the right people and going through the right drills. These are two very, very important things. I think beyond this, Supreme Court has already done its job. I don't think there is...
Let me leave it there, Mr. Azad. Let me leave it there because I want to go and meet the doctors now. I appreciate Karunanidhi, Yashowardhan Azad joining us. What happened in the court? Now, after 11 days, the doctors in Delhi end their strike in several parts of the country over the Kolkata rape and murder horror. Resident Doctors Association at AIIMS, RML, Lady Harding in Delhi ended their strike. In other parts too, strikes are ending, but not in Kolkata itself and not at the RG Kar hospital in particular. The doctors have claimed that emergency services at the hospital remain unaffected. Joining me at this moment is Dr. Kunal Sarkar, Senior Vice Chairman, Director and Head of Cardiac Surgery at Medical Super Specialty Hospital, Kolkata. He's been one of those who's been raising his voice against the way the government has handled this case. Dr. Manish Jangra is Founder and Chief Advisor, FIMA, which is the Association for Resident Doctors. And I'm also joined by a doctor at RG Kar Hospital who doesn't want to come on camera. He will only speak on audio. Can I first come to my guest from RG Kar Hospital to ask you, why have you decided to continue with your protests given the fact that the Supreme Court has asked you to call them off?
Yes, we are going to continue our protests because none of our demands have been met. The first demand that we have had since day one is justice. So, not all the culprits have been arrested. They have not been given any punishment. We have no idea how far the investigation has proceeded so far, so now. And of course, we have not received any apology by the authority concerned under whose surveillance this crime happened. Even the vandalism that had happened, we have received no apology, and despite that there has been some resignations of the posts. Yet we, in one of our demands were that there should be no assignment of any administrative and authoritative posts in the future of their service, but this has not happened, and still now our safety is in question. As how do we know that if we go back to our work, are we going to be still safe? Can we give night shifts? What if those goons, those 7,000 goons who had attacked us, are they not going to come back at us? Or whoever is in the supreme power of this major crime are not going to get at us?
Okay, I want to come from there to you, Dr. Kunal Sarkar. You just heard this young doctor saying, look, they are still not sure of their safety, their security. They will carry on with their protests. They're still not sure justice has been done. As we are reporting today, the CBI seems to indicate that the Kolkata police has caught the right person. Sanjoy Roy was indeed the rapist in this case, as per our sources. Do you believe that that's enough to believe that justice has been done? What, according to you, will define justice in this case?
Rajdeep, it's a bit comforting that you emphasize on this point, but apart from your sources, people have heard the lengthy live streaming of the Supreme Court with the many queries raised and questions asked. But I think on the sort of official channels, there has not been any corroborations yet. The second point, which is very important to appreciate, is, the students of Arjikor has actually wounded the deepest. They carry the deepest wounds from all this episode. And what is actually adding insult to their injury is, for the good part of almost, say, ever since the 9th of August, this big institution has really not had any stable administration at all. What's coming of the ex-principal? The replacement principal have been changed. Every few days you have a musical chairs of administrators. So these aggrieved students really just appreciate the perspective. They've really not even had a couple of empathetic, responsible senior administrators, professors, whoever to talk to. They are really in an orphan state of affairs over there as far as the overall academic administration is concerned. And what is further complicating the situation in West Bengal is that every other day there is a huge list of academic, practical misdeeds, corruptions, a list which is coming from within the medical fraternity, which is really adding to the students' ire, how things are going wrong in conducting of the exams. There is an endless list of corruptions to do with favors, giving marks, and this is all happening within the medical community. And to some extent, it is happening within the larger Trinamool community. So I think it will take a little bit more time for the dust to settle. From the general perspective, there is no doubt about the fact that, Bengal relies very heavily on government hospitals, more so than any other big states of India. So from the people's perspective, no two words about the fact that these youngsters need to resume their duties, but they need to be consoled, given the confidence, they need to be comforted, and any measure of stability in the overall healthcare administration in Bengal is sadly missing. The sooner the government gets its act together, the better will it be. So I believe, give it a few more days, I think they will calm down with some kind of conclusion being arrived, closure being arrived in this case. And we feel, as much as you do or anyone else, that we really need to resume normality in the hospitals. because needless to say, thousands are being affected.
I'll come back to you in a moment, Dr. Sarkar. I just want to understand from you, Dr. Manish Jangra, you're leading this protest in different parts of the country. Now that the Supreme Court has given certain assurances, has asked you to return to work, are all of you returning to work, or are resident doctors in certain parts still going to stay away?
Sir, first of all, I would like to thank Rajdeep Sardesai, sir, for inviting me to the show. And I would like to personally say one thing. Rajdeep Sardesai, sir, always supported the resident doctors. Every time I contacted sir personally, and sir always tweeted about our issues and always shared those things. Thank you so much, sir.
No, that is because
Now,
my son is my son has been a resident doctor. I know the problems that you have. But beyond that, I want to understand from you. Have you all decided now to call off the strike? Is that an all India decision?
Yes, sir. Basically, our organization today has a meeting at 3 p.m. after the Supreme Court verdict. The meeting continued for 3 hours. And at last, it was concluded after the majority stakeholders. It was decided that strike should be called off because there was some different opinion also. Some resistance was also there from some states, like Maharashtra states was meeting with the CM on the behalf of MARD Association. They are also the part of the FIMA. And in every state, they were meeting their health minister and their chief minister. So basically, at last, it was decided that Supreme Court has directed the CBI. Obviously, it is monitoring the CBI.
But have you got any assurances from the health ministry?
Sir, till now we basically has got a notice after the Supreme Court has intervened it, and they have ordered the health ministry. They have created this national task force after the Supreme Court advice or order.
Right.
And I would like to tell one thing to you, sir. When the Supreme Court has directed the state governments, and DGP after the FIMA was the party in the Supreme Court today on the behalf of the advocate Tanvi Dubey was there to represent the FIMA, and Dr. Rishiraj Sinha presented there as our member of the FIMA. And the Supreme Court, after hearing our plea, he directed all the states and DGP he has given the 2 weeks to them to protect the interim protection to the every doctors working in every state. And Supreme Court has asked for 2 weeks review in this form whether they are forming any committee or whether what they are actually doing to protect as interim protection to the
so you're saying you will get
so we are happy on this part. And regarding the CBI case, already we protested in the Delhi. When we protested in the Delhi, the government was forced to give the case to the basically Supreme Court directed the case to the CBI because a huge pressure was there from the Delhi resident doctors under our organization. Okay, so we are happy that CBI is doing Manish, its duty and it is under monitoring by the Supreme Court. So
Manish, I'm running out of time because I just want to get in Dr. Sarkar for a final word. You know, Dr. Sarkar, we seem to be in a situation where will accountability be fixed? You've spoken about the complete mess in the medical system at the moment, particularly in Bengal. This incident highlighting it both at the government level as well as the hospital level. How would you like to see accountability fixed? Is it where does the buck stop?
Look, Rajdeep, we cannot change the past. And rather than, even before, yes, accountability has to be fixed. But before that, we have to have a semblance of some systematic management in the West Bengal health system. Because they are at the receiving end of the angst and the ire of the students community, the people at large. Every second day, their minds get changed, their orders get altered. So really, under somebody like our Chief Minister, Mamata Banerjee, who's also the Health Minister, they will have to weather the storm. They will have to stand firm, give stability to the healthcare administration, and then, as happens always after any disaster, natural or man-made, that things will take a little bit of time to fall its place. But at this point of time, things are too disheveled, things are too much in sixes and sevens for us to expect. Because, say, in Arjikar itself, I believe something like 50 to 75 students and interns have already packed their bags and left the city. There is so much of, instability in the system. So they need to be comforted, they need to be consoled, they need to have somebody supervising them and their college. And once we have that, I am sure that since their anger will die down, some conclusion will be reached, and we are as eager as anyone else to resume normality in the health services.
Let me leave it there. I've heard various voices. Accountability surely is where you start the process of healing and bridging the divide that today exists between the angry students and citizens on one side and the state and hospital authorities on the other. Thank you all very much to my guests for joining me.